As we've been exploring so far, this kind of gentle, non-reactive response can lead to new possibilities for our lives that arise precisely because we're not getting carried away by the pain or in the pain.
And he said, why don't you look at this orange as if for the very first time? And as you're starting to peel it, I want you to peel it as if this was the very first time you've ever noticed this orange before. And I said, that's ridiculous. Why would I do that? I want this orange. I'm going to eat this orange. And he said, just humor me for a minute. And this was a moment in my life where I was really struggling. I was very confused. I was worrying about my future. I had been I had a lot of shame built up about, my recent past in that time. And so I looked at this orange as if for the first time, and I saw all these dimples around the orange, and I saw the color of the orange. And that's not something I usually pay attention to. And as I opened the orange, I noticed this mist pop up from the orange. It's like effervescent, like mist pop up, and a little like kind of tickle ran up me. I thought that was interesting. I don't usually experience that. And so as I was opening the orange, I saw the membranes of the orange, and then I kind of started to peel the orange apart. And I started looking at it and holding it up to the light, and I saw that it had some kind of translucence. And now this was kind of fun a little bit to me. And I put it on my tongue, and I started tasting the orange. As I bit into it, I ate it slightly slower than I normally would think to. And the flavor of the orange filled my mouth, so much so that it felt like I was experiencing an intense moment of joy.
As we have more and more of these moments, over time, we cultivate what's called mindful awareness. What does mindfulness look like? Appreciating a sunset, drinking a glass of water, brushing your teeth. Literally any moment of any day offers a chance to practice mindfulness or being present.
The thing about this mindfulness is that it's not a skill. It's not something that it's a foreign thing that one has to learn. It's really the practice of learning mindfulness is a practice of reconnecting to something that we already know experientially, because we're born with the ability to be mindful. I was calling home, and my son at the time was 2.5, 3 years old. And I was just excited to talk to him because it had been a few days since I'd seen him. And I said, "Hey, Ben, so what are you doing?" And he said, "Well, Dad, I'm talking to you on the phone." And it was that moment of, oh yeah, like he gets it. He's doing it. He's mindful. He's right there with me. And I'm, what were you just doing? What are you about to do? All of this other stuff going on. And I think there's something about that innate ability that we all have that kids are a little closer to because they haven't lost it. Like some of us have gotten along a little further in age. We've gotten a little farther off track, a little more conditioned and stressed out and everything else. And so there's something that's accessible about this to everyone.
While this approach makes good sense when we're talking about positive experiences, like being more attentive to a delicious meal or being more aware during a conversation with a good friend, we're still left with a difficult question. How does it make sense to be more present and attentive of painful experiences? This can feel a bit counterintuitive. After all, won't that just make it hurt more?
Are you crazy? You're asking me to be more present to my emotional pain? You're asking me to sit with it and actually be here more? That makes good sense if you're talking about walking through the tulips and being more present to the love of your family, etc. But how would it ever apply? It makes less sense how being present would matter for depression or for anxiety. Why, it's distracting myself, it's numbing out to it, and it's avoiding it that helps me survive it. I've heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah, there are a lot of options to escape. So why would you want to open to their depression or anxiety?
In future classes at All of Life, we'll have a lot more to say about this. For now, we would just suggest that this kind of awareness practice may help us begin to respond to distress in healthier ways.
If we can be with what is arising for us and not add to it with, judgment or, well, I used to do it this way, or I used to solve this that way, or I heard somebody else did it this way. Can we just rest with what is? Feel it in the body. And then maybe some other little piece of information might arise about how I could approach that, or how I might reach out in order to help myself.
I've worked with people who have had eating disorders, binge eating disorders, panic disorders, people who have lost people recently, who have had to deal with deep grief. What I teach people is to find moments throughout the day where you can connect to just your experience. So this is the idea of just stop, take a breath, take a few deep breaths. What that does is pop us out of the autopilot of the moment. Observe your experience, observe your body, observe how you're feeling emotionally. All that is kind of naming it. This isn't any big mystical enlightenment experience or anything like that. How am I feeling emotionally? Is my mind busy, scattered, or am I able to be present right now?
If we are truly present, we're not projecting about the future, and we're not ruminating about the past. We're present for what is arising for us. And so that practice, if you can imagine that, if you're in the middle of a depressive, you're feeling a depressive emotion, I'm depressed. Well, our tendency to want to fix that, to not have it present, to not feel it, suddenly we're tossing ourselves out into the future, or we're ruminating about how we might have solved it in the past, and we are not focused on what is. The power of dealing with something as it is and not trying to make it otherwise, this is really key. To me, it's such an important thing to really try to experience and have a taste of.
In our own way, we all avoid really taking inventory and just looking at the mess that is in our house, that is ourself. And I was blown away, I don't know by what grace I was able to just take a look at it, that boogeyman that I'd been afraid of looking at my whole life. But once I did, I was not only dismayed by how things were so messy, but equally by this profound sense of okayness that reassured me that I can hold both of those things, that it's okay. It's not only okay to be messy, but that's part of our human condition. And it's that okayness, it's that sense of profound peace that we all have access to that makes that mess okay.
Awareness I see as this vessel, this vessel of loving kindness, if you will, in ourselves. That says, I can have depressive thoughts, I can have anxious thoughts, I can have all kinds of emotions, physical sensations, but I'm much more than just that. I'm much more than just that.
Rather than only being able to tolerate certain emotions or states of mind, we begin to use all the experience that's present in life, not just the stuff we like, but also the stuff we'd rather not have to deal with. And as we do that over time, we start to realize there's almost no experience we can't work with in a way that leaves us feeling stronger and more whole.
What I know to be true is that when we can learn, even in small bites, to look at ourselves, to look at what is present for us, even if it's troubling, even if it's something we don't like, and just take small little snippets of it and relate to it. Say, gosh, that's me. That's me right now. Can I just look at that? And then can I just let it go? This process of learning to relate to what comes up for us, it's a practice, and it can be scary, but time after time I'm reassured that there's nothing scary about it. It's empowering. It does exactly the opposite.
It's always a tricky business talking about suffering and talking about the way out of suffering, because we all suffer, and some of us quite a bit more profoundly than others. And when I think about the people who suffer the most, imagine people who are in so much physical pain or mental, emotional pain that they fantasize about ending their lives, though that suffering is so real. I would say that in any moment to moment, life is delivering us this opportunity to just open up to what's there. Regardless of the conditions, we can have courage and we can have honesty and we can have openness to just see what's happening. And in my experience, when we do that, when we really look at things openly and honestly, we realize that what we thought was more powerful than us, what we thought could completely swallow us or destroy us, we realize that just the act of courage to look at it and to be honest with the fact that this is here, this is what's upon me in my life in this moment. I've found countless examples, friends, students, you name it, who have that moment of an encounter, even a confrontation with their suffering, and they realize that all of a sudden that suffering that was driving them, driving their behavior, driving their thought process towards, I just want it to end. They muster up that little droplet of courage, that courage it takes to stop running and to turn around and to face. And they realize that so much of that suffering, so much of that desire to just make it all go away, let it all just end right now, they realized that it was their very resistance, it was their very avoidance of what was present that was charging that situation so much. It's not to say that pain will go away. For reasons I can't explain, some people deal with a lot more pain in this life. But we all have resistance. And if we can drop that resistance just a little bit and be honest about the pain that's present, I think we'll always be surprised at how equal we are to the task of meeting our pain. So how does this sound to you? We're interested to hear what you think. We've also got plenty more to talk about together. For now, let's close this class with one summary statement from someone who knows the brain better than just about anybody.
I guess I'd want to say to the people that are experiencing a lot of very serious difficulty in their lives, for people that are really struggling, that are feeling a sense of real hopelessness, that the storm is overpowering, that they just leave the door open a little bit for the possibility that there's something you can do, something very simple that can take just a few minutes of your day that might actually allow you to feel better, to move toward feeling just a little bit better.